Hi, this is Ann Stoneson of Beginning Counselor, Building Your Ideal Internship. And today I'll be speaking with you about how to see your first clients without losing your lunch. So, this is for you if the thought of seeing your first client makes you really anxious, if you're worried about what to say or do in that first session, and you're concerned about those uncomfortable silences or the questions you won't know how to answer. Or maybe if you're just needing a little bit of encouragement, all of these are fine. You're in the right spot. My first tip to help you see your first clients without losing your lunch is to remember that clients worry too. The fact is the client is in a really vulnerable position coming to see you. They're going to be talking about lots of deeply personal things, and your job primarily is to listen and be curious, so they're in the more vulnerable position. And that's really important to remember. This isn't to minimize how you're feeling and the fact that you're feeling quite nervous about how those first few sessions will go, but it's helpful to know that you're not alone in the room with your worry, that clients worry too. My second tip to help you see your first clients without losing your lunch is to remember that clients are usually focused on themselves, not so much on you. It's certainly true that they will be noticing you and noticing what you say, and that's a part of the process. But by and large, they're not focused on you nearly as much as you may think they are. They really are thinking about what's brought them in. They're wondering if things can get better. They're wondering maybe how they come across to you. Do you think they're crazy? So for the most part, they're really not going to be thinking a whole lot about you. So if you're feeling under the microscope, remember that. My third tip to help you see your first clients without losing your lunch is to remember your biggest jobs. And I see it as being 4 different things. Your first job is to listen. Just listen. Most likely, your client is struggling to know who they can talk to about these things. Perhaps they've already tried to talk to friends or family. And while well-meaning, these people may have agendas, concerns, worries. The client may feel they have to protect friends and family from their feelings. So if all you do is listen, you're doing very well and you're offering the client something very valuable. The second thing to remember about what your biggest job is, it's to be curious. I like this one because I think it lets you off the hook of being the expert, which a lot of new therapists, I think, often feel that they need to know more things or know what to do or what direction to go in. And if you let curiosity be the guide, that lets your client be the expert on their own experience. This can be really good for building rapport. It doesn't put you in the hot seat of having to know all the things. And I think it really contributes to tip number 1, which is the client feeling like they've really been heard and listened to when you ask questions guided by curiosity rather than needing to show what you know. Another thing to consider about your biggest job, to convey hope. This, I think, is very important, especially at the beginning. Although, as always, you want to follow your client's lead, and you don't want to be pushing silver linings or solutions or, things before they're ready. But they're coming in because some part of them thinks that things can change. Another part of them may be very worried that this is just going to be the way that it is. So in those early sessions, your job is to convey a sense of hope that even if there are certain aspects of their experience that may not change, things that can't be moved no matter what, that there is hope. Things can improve, even if it's just how the client feels about the situation they're in. And the last thing to consider when you're thinking about, oh no, how am I going to see these clients? How am I going to know what to do? You don't have to fix things. I fall into this trap even now after nearly 10 years of practice. It can be very tempting to put on your thinking hat and go, okay, what can we do to make this better? And that may not be where the client needs to go. They're resourceful people. They're smart. If it was simple as oh, well, I need to do this, this, and this, then people would go and do those things and they wouldn't be sitting in your office. So remember that you don't need to fix anything for your client. Your biggest job is to listen, be curious about their experience, convey hope, and avoid the temptation to fix. My fourth tip to help you see your first clients without losing your lunch is a little unconventional, but I want you to catastrophize. I want you to think about the worst case scenario. So what's it going to be? Are you going to say your name wrong? Are you going to stumble over your words? Are you going to say the client's name wrong? Are you going to curse in front of your client? Turn beet red? Fidget uncomfortably during a long silence? What's it going to be? And then consider, how likely is that to happen? Is it very likely that you're going to stumble over your words? Maybe. Might you mispronounce the client's name? Perhaps. But I think actually recovery from errors, whether they feel large or small, is just as important as anything that you do in the room. So if you can approach situations with grace under pressure and maybe a little bit of humor, you're doing really well. So catastrophize. Think about that worst case scenario. Think about how likely it is to happen, and then take it further. If it does happen, really, what's the bottom line? How much does that impact things? You know, I did hear a story about a therapist who, I guess we could say they did have a catastrophe in the first session, or at least something pretty embarrassing happened. They sat down in their chair, and I guess they were a little too enthusiastic with it, and they actually tipped the chair over backwards and flashed the client as they were falling out of their chair. And the therapist went on with the session, and the client did not return the following week. And certainly that's an embarrassing situation, and you feel for the therapist and you feel for the client. I'm sure they were both embarrassed. But I like to think that that client went on to see somebody else, and, you know, in the end, that no lasting harm was done. Except just perhaps a little bit of temporary discomfort for the therapist's ego. So remember, how bad really could it be if the thing you're most fearing will happen does happen? My fifth tip for how to see your first clients without losing your lunch is to remember that practice makes perfect, or really practice makes better. And I'm sure this is one that you've thought of and you've probably heard other people say too, but it bears repeating. These first sessions, whether it's in practicum or once you've finished your pre-graduate experience and you're now doing your postgraduate work, you're still new in this role. And so it's natural you're going to have some apprehension about that. But these nerves are going to ease, and the more practice you have with sitting with people and holding space for them, the easier and easier it gets. So as uncomfortable as it is right now, know that you're laying some really valuable framework for your future self, that you're just going to get better and better at this as you go along. So do what you can to roll with the growing pains and the nerves, and know that it's not always going to be this way. And you're going to get really good at this, and it's going to be easier and easier for you to do. I hope this has been helpful to you. If you would like some more support about how to see your first clients without losing your lunch, or for other concerns common for beginning counselors, please consider visiting beginningcounselor.com, where we have a community of people looking to support you during this important phase of your training. This is Ann Stoneson of Beginning Counselor, Building Your Ideal Internship. Thanks for taking the time to connect today. See you at another video soon.